typical mode of transportation for Honduras. Please note the guys hanging off the side of the truck trying to take pictures with their cell phones of something that was occurring behind us, which I always find amazing that they don't fall off. But they don't, which is good. The first thing that hits you, I've been to Honduras 5 times, and I would count myself as an old pro, so to speak. I kind of know what to expect. I know our living conditions. I know, the bugs and different things that you run into, and so I really kind of counted myself as an old pro. And it gets hot there in January and November, but this hot hits you in the face, and it kind of stays there the whole time. It's like walking through a wall in the middle of summertime here. Imagine summertime here with no air conditioning, no relief whatsoever, just a fan. Kind of like camp. So it's kind of like camp. No relief the whole time, and our quarters are like that where we stay. The only real relief we get is when we're actually in the van traveling. So we kind of like traveling from place to place because we get a little cool. This was the first night, our drive to our home base camp. The one thing I didn't show you here is when we got there, the one relief you do have is the fans. But when we got there, it was a blackout, which happens a lot when it's really hot. So we had to unpack all of our stuff, all the fans, all the things that we need in order to be there for the whole week. We have it stored in one room that's locked when we leave, and so we had to unpack all these things in the dark. So it was an interesting first night, as it typically is. The first trip, or the first stop we made when we stopped there was to visit Adelaida. Adelaida is a 92-year-old youth director. This lady is passionate. She's a very passionate woman. But she's one who prays, and the Lord actually gives her visions, which is amazing. The Lord, many years ago, gave her a vision that Pastor Ray was coming. When he came to her church to visit in Maquiliso, which is what he was asked to do by one of his parishioners in Miami, he showed up to church, and she came right up to him and said, "The Lord told me you were coming." And that was the beginning of Cristo Salva and the ministry there. It's amazing. But that is Adelaida with Pastor Brent. Many of you guys know. You guys all should know Pastor Brent, I believe. And then her son Charlie behind her. This is very typical of what we do. We stop at a home, and we just ask them if it's okay if we talk to them for a minute. We find out how many people live there. We find out what their situation is, if they have a job. Many people don't have jobs because the economy is not exactly the best there. If they don't have a job in agriculture, many times they don't have a way to provide for their family. They can grow certain things depending on the size of their yard. This family, the man actually was employed. We did leave some provisions with them, but the one thing that we always do when we stop and we talk to the families is we ask them if there's something we can pray for. We ask them if they're believers. If they are believers, we ask them which church they go to. We do stop and we go to church every single night. We're there. And so we do ask them which church they attend, and we ask them if there's anything they'd like us to pray with them for. And so it's always a privilege to pray with people, especially when you're praying in a different language. We worship the same God, which is amazing. These 6 people live in this home. This is very typical. This is on the side of the highway in La Flecha. You see a lot of this. You don't have to get out of the city too far. And San Pedro Sula is a modern city. You go by TGI Fridays, Pizza Hut, you go through by all kinds of things that we would recognize here. And then you're not very far outside the city, and you start seeing structures that look like this. And this is their home. This is where they live. 6 people live here. They cook inside the home typically. Sometimes there's ventilation to ventilate the wood fire out. Sometimes the wood fire's outside of the home. It just depends on the home. But these are strong believers. And we had the privilege of leaving them some food provisions, praying with them, and leaving some items with them that they needed. This woman was, typically, in Honduras, you see people with lots of joy. even though they don't have much of anything, what we would consider much of anything. They have a lot of joy. This woman did not have a lot of joy. She was very sad. And she was sad because she's alone. And she had been taking care of her grandchild. Her son was killed, was murdered actually. And she had been taking care of the granddaughter. And the granddaughter recently was taken back by the mother. The child hadn't been living with the mother, had been living with the father. And the mother came and basically collected, her daughter and left this woman by herself, and she was very sad. And we encouraged her, we prayed with her, and that's really the whole ministry of Cristo Salva, is to be an encouragement to the people that we minister to. We can't fix their problems, but we can point them in the direction of Jesus, which is important. This is Maria. Maria is the older woman on the right, and her daughter Maria is on the left. Her daughter Maria is expecting a child, doesn't live with her, lives down the street. Maria, the one that is expecting, is 14. This is very typical in Honduras. 14, 15-year-old girls are starting families of their own. And usually by the time they're the Maria's age on the right, they have probably 6, 7 children, maybe more, and they don't have a man in the family in the picture. So you see lots of families with grandmothers, mothers, and children. You don't see a lot of men. And that's just typical of what we see. We had an opportunity to pray with her. The rest of the team sort of went away, and our medical director got a chance to talk to the younger daughter to make sure she had prenatal vitamins and some of the things that she needed in order to be able to make sure these babies are healthy. Because one of the biggest problems in Honduras is malnutrition. See a lot of blonde-haired kids in Honduras, which is, you wouldn't expect to see that. You'd expect them to have very dark hair, but the very light hair is indicative of malnutrition. It's because of parasites. So we have a program with one of our partners, Vitamin Angels, and they provide us albendazole, which is an anti-parasitic, twice a year in January, typically in July. We will give anti-parasitics to everybody we visit. And that helps eliminate the parasites that are in the water and other things that they consume. And then we also have a micronutrient program, vitamins that are distributed through the school system. We provide it for thousands of school systems in Honduras. And we only provide children's vitamins to children between the ages of 1 and 5, because the 5-year-olds and up get it at school. So if we find a home that has younger children, we try to give them vitamins. And this family, we left prenatal vitamins. First church, the first night, was Pastor Gladys's church. And it is a very hopping church. They're very loud in their celebration. But it's neat because you'll hear the songs that we sing in Spanish. And so it's always neat when you hear a song that you recognize, because then you can sing it in English. So you're worshiping the Lord with people, and you have no idea what they're saying except for if you hear a song that you recognize. And it's always really neat to be able to worship together. We stop at schools. This time of year, school is actually in session. In January, when I've gone before, school is out of session. Their summer vacation, so to speak, is usually around December or January. So if I go in January, school's out. So it's nice when I get a chance to visit and school's actually in session. So we got a chance to stop at some schools. We have a school sponsorship program, which is really neat. For $40 a year, you can sponsor a child to go to school. They can't go to school unless they have their uniform. They have to have a white shirt, navy bottoms, and black shoes, and they have to have all of their school supplies for the whole year. So they have to have typically a backpack with paper and pencils and crayons and things that they would normally need for school. It's not provided by the school system. You have to have it, and if you don't, you can't go to school. And so we've had a school sponsorship program. We sponsor over 200 kids a year to go to school, which is amazing. And this is Pastor Brent and Pastor Cristobal. Pastor Cristobal is a great man. He lives in Casa Quemada, which is a good, probably 25-minute drive from this location right here. Pastor Brent's church in Loganville raised enough money to purchase this property behind them. They are planting a church in Las Pilas. We go into villages. Typically, we're not there to take over the church. We're not there to start a competing church. We're here to help encourage the people in every village. In Las Pilas, they didn't have a church. And so people typically were not going to church. They weren't attending anything. And Pastor Cristobal, you know, we noticed that they didn't have a church, so we talked to Pastor Cristobal and asked him if he'd be willing to come and plant a church in Las Pilas. So he has a church in Casa Quemada, which is still about 25 minutes away. So twice a week, on Sunday mornings, he goes to Las Pilas, and he has Sunday school with all the kids. There's a little home right in the center of the village where a lady has agreed to allow them to use for Sunday school, and they have about 25 kids that come to Sunday school every Sunday morning. And then he comes and does another service in the middle of the week. Where? In the open air. But this is going to be where their church is. Loganville raised enough money to be able to buy this property, and now not just Pastor Cristobal coming and overseeing, but all the people of the village are helping. This is their church. This is exciting stuff, guys. This made me cry. I want you to know. We also visited the school in Las Pilas. Lots of kids crammed into very small spaces. But as you can see, they all have their uniforms, and they're all ready for school. We also helped this woman who was sick. She had actually an abscessed tooth. Whenever we run across people that need medical attention, our medical director, our RN, she does stop and try to, we always carry a medical kit with us, and we try to help people as much as we can. And God always we always have the right thing in the bag that we need. It's amazing. And then we distributed lots of these knitted items. Now you think, knitted items in April when it's 95 degrees, well, it gets kind of cold in Honduras, and believe it or not, in January, I've actually been really cold. I had several layers on, and I woke up and just was shivering because it was so cold. So it does get cold in Honduras. Through a lady in the state of Maine, her family lives in Germany, and these little ladies from Germany get together once a week, this little Christian group, and they knit these items for the people of Honduras. And we gave away, I don't know how many blankets and hats and booties and little things for children. And but this group gets together, and their desire is just to knit these things for the people of Honduras. And so it's really neat that half a world away, there's a group of Christian ladies that get together and do this. And then there's also aprons that we gave away. There's a lady in Maine who sews these aprons. She just sews them and sews them. And especially the grandmothers, they love getting these aprons, and they're always so proud of them. So it's neat to be able to provide them something that they maybe not would be able to have. We also did a home visitation with Pastora Gladys herself. Pastora Gladys never married, never had any children of her own, but she lived with her mother her entire life, and since the last trip from Cristo Salva, she did lose her mother. And so it was nice to be able to minister to someone who has ministered a lot. She's somebody who ministers all the time. And our pastors need ministering to, too. And it was really neat. These are the four pastors: Pastor Brent, Pastor Ron from our ACGC denomination, Pastor Ray on the right, and then, of course, Pastora Gladys. This is our television station. My caption was, many years ago they prayed that they would be able to start a radio station. That was the prayer. They wanted to reach lots of people for Christ. God had a different plan, doesn't he always? He doesn't always like our plan. This is our Christian broadcast system. This is the Cristo Salva Christian Broadcasting System. This goes into 50,000 homes in Honduras. Reaches as far away as San Pedro Sula, which is 2.5 hours away. Amazing. You know, you pray for things, and God sometimes says, no, I've got a better plan. And this is a better plan. And William, who runs this Christian broadcasting station, he was a believer, and we knew he was a believer. And then Pastor Ray told me he called Letty a few months ago and was so excited. He had gone to church, and the Lord had just literally changed his life. And God is using William and this ministry in Azacualpa to reach many people for Christ. All through the little ministry of Cristo Salva, that one trip that Pastor Ray was asked to take. This is also the measurements for the church in Las Pilas that's being planted. They wanted to use the footprint of one of the churches that already exists in Macualiso. And so this is the guys measuring the church. This is going to be what the new church in Las Pilas, once it's completed, this is what it's going to look like. So it's exciting to kind of see what God has got moving, God has got going on. This is another church we visited in Zula, Pastor Roger. They meet 7 days a week. 7 days a week, people. We complain about going to church twice a week. 7 days a week. And we're not talking about little half-hour howdy-doody. We're talking about they meet for 2 straight hours every single night, every single day of the week. Wow. And the spirit that is in those services is unbelievable. One of the girls that lives on the compound where we stay, Jennifer, she walks to school, which is a good, at least a couple-mile walk each way to go to school. Comes home, eats dinner, and then she goes to church every single night. She sings and plays the piano at this church. Dedicated young lady. This is some of the poorest of the homes that we visited. This is Marguerite. Morgan was with me the first time we met Marguerite, and Morgan held her baby at the time, who is now in 1st grade. And these are some more children that she's had since then. But this is typical outdoor stove behind them, and then the tin roof. They just now have toilets, which is something new. Something that the village now has put in. They have toilets, and then they have some running water, which is something they've never had, especially in this area. We did do a small clinic, and we usually have about 5 or 6 things happening at the same time during the clinic, and we usually will have 2 or 3 pods depending on how many medical personnel we have with us at the time. We also had a couple of guys who do heavy-duty truck work or electrical work or plumbing, and so we have the guys fixing the plumbing. We've had some serious problems with the kids breaking off a little plastic piece that diverts our water. We have a well water at the clinic, and so we've had some problems with that plastic piece being broken off, which cuts off the water from the city and actually just uses our well water. And they fixed that while we were there. And then I got some pictures of some kids in our sponsorship program. So there's always multiple projects happening at the same time, usually, which, is very typical. While we were out doing some home visitations, God brought us this man in our path. He was just walking down the road and stopped and asked us, could we pray for him? And he had a very, very sore, I think it was his jaw or his head that was very sore, and I happened to get some ibuprofen from the pharmacy because I had a headache that day, and he needed something for pain. So we were able to give him, I think it was actually Tylenol, so we were able to give that to him, and our translator's on the right, Jasmine, and she told him how to take it, and then we gave him some money for bus fare to get to the big city because he had to go see a doctor, had no way to get there. So God brings people, we pray before we leave that building every morning, Lord, bring us into the path of the right person at the right time today to allow us to be able to serve you. And, we may never see this man again, I don't know, but God brought us in his path for a reason, and we were obedient. We also visited the Laurels. It's a very, very poor area. These folks are squatters on the side of the road. The little girl in the green dress on the right is the little girl in the white and red striped shirt on the left. That was when I first met her in 2008 on the right, and this is her now, today. It's amazing to see. We've been able to help them with food and vitamins and supplies and things that they need. And, you know, their situation is such that I wish we could move them to a new place, but unfortunately we cannot. And but God allows us to minister, and that's important. I also get to attend the wedding of one of my really good friends, Jen O'Brien, and that is her husband, Carlos, and their wedding party. And they do weddings very large and very long. It was about a 2-hour ceremony, roughly. So they do it very, it's a long ceremony. But it was nice to be there, and I love Jen. They're going to live there. Carlos is Honduran, and you know, it's really neat to be there for this particular time, so I appreciated being there. That was really neat. The last day we were here, we met Pastor Juan. Pastor Juan is on the right, Pastor Ray is on the left. He feeds over 100 kids a day. I'm going to say that again. He feeds over 100 kids a day. And he talked about how when he first arrived at this village, it's called Laguna Verde, which is Green Lagoon, translated. And in this little village, he said, Satan had a stronghold in this village. But he said, God has given me dominion in this village. And he has preached the gospel to all of these kids. And now, he discipled these older children. These children disciple the younger children. It's amazing. We had an 11-year-old pray for us. I wish... I am very humbled by the fact that an 11-year-old has more faith than I do. It's evident in his prayer. It's evident in his life. It's amazing. I complain that I have to drive an hour to work, forgetting the fact that I have a car. I complain that I have to work long hours, forgetting the fact that I have a job that's been for me. He's thankful for the meal a day he gets, one meal. He's thankful that Jesus died for his sins. Does that not humble you? It humbles me. This is the leaders of their church. These children. It's amazing. All from Christos Alba, this little ministry that started, this little door that Pastor Ray walked through. And he was obedient to the Lord. He was obedient to doing what God had instructed and directed him to do. And all of these ministries have branched off of this ministry. Isn't it amazing what God can do if we're obedient, if we listen? This is our team. It's a very little team. Most of you know Pastor Ron Thomas on the right and Pastor Brent next to me. Next to me on the other side is David Bignali. Many of you may not know David Bignali, but he's been a missionary for many years. And this man helped in the founding of Oro Bible College in the Philippines. This man speaks something like 8 or 9 languages and writes in 7. I mean, it blows my mind, you know, how God has used him over the years. And then Rick, who is coming every single time and assists Pastor Ray. And Hillary, who's the one on the right kneeling in front of me, she's the medical director. She's the new person who's taken over. And then Emily came from Maine, and the boy standing in black is Jacob, and he came from Maine as well. And then on the left, on the far left with the red bag is Kim, who came from Connecticut. And then standing with her white shirt and her blue skirt and her black shoes is Jennifer. This is the little girl that goes to school, walks to school every day. We gave her a ride to school this day, our last day when we were leaving. And she goes to church 7 days a week, every night. She's just got such a heart. So thank you very much for sending me and allowing me to serve. But just know that I've come back, and I do every single time, more humbled about my lack of faith than I do. I go to serve the people of Honduras, and you think, oh, okay, I'm going to help these poor people. These people may be poor physically and may be poor monetarily, but they're so rich. I learned so much from them. And so thank you. Thank you for sending me and allowing me to be able to serve in that way. Yes.
May I ask, are there perhaps some thoughts that you would share with us regarding how we might be more of a support in the future regarding this ministry? Do you have any thoughts?